welcome to Flourish, the podcast for faith-driven mompreneurs who are ready to release overwhelm, create sustainable, healthy habits, and build purpose-driven businesses aligned with their faith, family, and vision. I'm Stephanie Book, a transformational mindset, wellness, and business coach. I'm here to equip you with the tools, mindset shifts, and encouragement to help you flourish. If you're ready to grow a thriving life and business while staying aligned with your faith, purpose, and priorities, you're in the right place. You are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Flourish podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm so glad that you are here. I love coming every single week and teaching you a little bit that's on my heart, some things that I have learned along the way to hopefully help you in your growth and your mindset, and your faith and your business, and your wellness too. Today, I wanted to share a little bit about perspective. I am currently going through a decision-making process with my husband about a couple different things, and we've been talking a little bit together about some decisions that we need to make. And one of the things that came to my mind today as I was thinking about sharing about this, I wasn't quite ready to share about all this decision-making and everything that is entailed with that. Definitely wanting to step in and seek the Lord through all of that. But for some reason, I was sitting in my chair trying to decide, looking at some different books that I have read when you're coming to making some decisions. And I felt like I needed a little bit more time to read through those again and really spend some time before I shared a lot of tips of ways that I can help you. But one thing that I know has really is a big priority or a big part of decision making is going to the Lord. But when I was sitting in my chair this morning, I was thinking about what I wanted to share and how I wanted to share it today. And I saw some poem books that I had on the shelf, in my bookshelf. And actually, this poem is not in any of those on my shelves. It's not in the books that I thought they were in. But this poem has been one that has always come to my mind. I don't remember when I learned about it. I must have found it sometime in elementary school. I really liked poems when I was younger, and so I was very intrigued by poetry. And so I know that there were certain times, there were certain books and things that I would check out at the library all of the time. But I came across the poem, The Sixth Man of Indostan, and it's by John Godfrey Saxe, and The Blind Man and the Elephant. A lot of people know it by that. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times when I'm doing a mic check or something like that, they'll start saying something, and I will start actually quoting that poem. I don't know the whole poem, but I know the first verse or two of it. And so it's kind of funny that it's always one of those things that pops into my mind. But it obviously made some type of impression on who I was and my heart, and it intrigued me in some way. So I was thinking through that today as we're stepping into some decision making, and I'm not quite ready to share all the different tips and things that I want to say as you're making a decision, because we're still kind of walking through that muddy season. But I do know that this idea of looking at perspective and having the whole picture is important. I want to make sure we're stepping in and hearing different sides of the story, of the situation, and also spending a lot of time in prayer and seeking the Lord. But I thought, what a good poem to talk about today as we're looking at perspective, looking at things from different angles. And I felt like it was very fitting for just a lot of the way the world is today, with all the different ideas of how people perceive things, and they hear something, but they only have part of that picture. They don't have the whole picture. And sometimes when we don't have the full picture, we can have a skewed view on what we are seeing. And so today I'm going to share about that poem and then share some scriptures that might align with this idea of perspective. Without further ado, I'll be reading The Sixth Man of Indostan, or otherwise known as The Blind Man and the Elephant. It was 6 men of Indostan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl, "God bless me, but the elephant is nothing but a wall." The second, feeling of the tusk, cried, "Ho, what have we here? So very round and smooth and sharp, to me 'tis mighty clear, this wonder of an elephant is very like a spear." The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a snake." The fourth reached out his eager hand and felt about the knee. What most this wondrous beast is like is mighty plain, quoth he. 'Tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree. The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, E'en the blindest man can tell what this resembles most. Deny the fact who can. This marvel of an elephant is very like a fan. The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, than seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope. I see, quoth he, the elephant is very like a rope. And so these men of Indostan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. So often theologic wars, the disputes I ween, tread on in utter ignorance of what each other mean, and prate about the elephant not one of them has seen. That verse at the end is always the hardest for me to read. But why does this matter? Why do we talk about, why am I sharing this poem? I love the idea of the massiveness of an elephant, right? If any of you have seen an elephant in person at a zoo or a safari or something like that, you know how massive an elephant is. And when we are only seeing one piece of the puzzle, right? One little piece of the elephant, we're really apt to not know the whole picture of what we're really seeing, what the whole scope of what we're looking at. Just like when we are reading scripture, if we read one verse, if we're not understanding the context of what we're reading, we can sometimes misinterpret what we're reading and really misinterpret a conversation, right? We've all been to a point where we have entered into a conversation and we haven't heard the whole conversation, and we can make judgments or observations based on that one part that we've heard. And so I think it's imperative that we understand to take in the full perspective of what we're seeing, get the whole picture before you make decisions, before we step into really having a full and true observation. Because I think we get emotional. First of all, I know I do. I think that we see something or we hear something and we don't have a full picture. I know that the impulse reactions come in right away. And so we want to guard ourselves of that as well, to learn how to take time to stop and bring in the whole picture, stop and allow ourselves to explore other opinions and other perspectives that might be around us, because we never know. We might be seeing something or hearing something not quite right. And so observing that truth is so important. These six men, they were different parts of the elephant that they touched. So like it said, like, they were partly in the right, but they were also very, very wrong. Like, yes, you look at a trunk, or I'm sorry, the leg of an elephant, it's going to feel like more like a tree, even the feeling of it, the bark and the roughness of an elephant, or, the trunk, how it could be like moving around like a snake, right? There's the ear or the fan, like it makes sense to, like, if only one that perspective. So we want to make sure that we are taking in that whole truth. What is the full truth of what we're looking at, what we're perceiving before we make those decisions, because that can really set us up for failure or confusion, or really just the sense of unrest, and cause, tension between people that are around us or people that we even care about. We see this all the time, played out, we hear different things, and I don't like to get in debates on social media, especially. I feel like we see a lot of that, somebody sees one thing or sees one post or sees one phrase, and then they make all these assumptions about something. I actually recently had someone who made a comment about my podcast. I don't know this person at all, and they made an assumption about who I was just by looking at the title, but didn't, and I encouraged them to listen to the podcast, but they just refuted it. They didn't want to take the time to listen in and hear what I was saying. And so I want to make sure that I'm always being right and upright with the things that I'm sharing, and I'm not perfect, and I'm sure I've said something and taken something out of context before. Of course, it's not on purpose, but I think it's important for us to look at that full perspective before we make judgment, before we make decisions as we go. So I know that a lot of times we will also lean on our own understanding, right? When we hear something, just like these blind men, they touched part of it. They took on what they did know at the part that they were feeling, and then they made those judgments on just what they knew and only their perspective. And the popular verse, Proverbs 3:5-6, helps us see that perspective, that we want to trust in his perspective and the Lord's perspective. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Like, we want to make sure in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path, right? That's the rest of it. So we know that, our assumptions sometimes were based on our experiences. And so we want to make sure that as we're stepping into the unknown, we want to make sure that we are seeking for him, for his path, for his clarity of where he wants us to go. So, and we know that, especially when we're in the unknown, when we're in maybe trying to figure different things out and we're researching different things, ways that we should move forward, we want to make sure that, our perspective is just a little bit of it. Just like the little bit of perspective each of those blind men got off that elephant, we don't know all the things that God knows. We don't know all the things that other people know. And so we want to make sure that we are understanding that God's perspective, God's wisdom is higher than our wisdom. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. Just as the blind man couldn't see that full elephant, we can't see the full picture of what God is doing and how he is working. And so we want to make sure we're continually going to him and trusting in him, seeking his wisdom, seeking his counsel for the ways that we should go and for those perspectives that we need to see. Our understanding, just like those blind men of Indostan, they're incomplete. And I think as we're walking through these decision making, my husband and I were walking through this, I think it's emotions can play a big part of it. I know that only knowing parts of the story sometimes doesn't give us the full perspective. And then not always knowing if this is a tug of emotion or if this is a tug to step into something different, or if it's just a tug of emotion that needs to be ridden out. But I think most of all is that we just want to make sure that we continue to seek the Lord. And whether you're making a decision to start or stop something, whether you're moving towards something that you want to create, if you're feeling that that's a way the Lord is leading you, we want to make sure that you are gaining all of your wisdom through his word, reading his word, spending time in the Bible, seeking him, praying, fasting if you need to make sure that you are in tune with what he is leading to. And God reveals what he wants us to hear just at the right time. And sometimes that's really hard to hear too. He promises to lead us the right way, but he wants us to continue to seek him. And so in this season of deciding or decision making, or even deciding if you're moving towards the right job or towards the right health plan even, right? As you're moving into the different decisions in your life, you want to make sure that you are not leaning on your own understanding, that you're not looking at just the one little piece, but you're able to open up the full perspective of what is possible and what God might be sharing or doing or wanting you to see. And so I just felt like when I was sitting there in my chair trying to decide what I wanted to share with you today, it just seemed so perfect to be able to step in and be like, how interesting it is for us to see just that one-sided perspective, that we can become so maybe set in what we know that we're not always open to see what else is around there that we might need to see beyond what's right in front of us. Recognizing that connecting with the Lord and seeking him, and then being patient for his guidance and answer, that's so important. Hey friends, before we go any farther in the episode, I wanted to make sure that you have my Faith and Flourish Entrepreneur Toolkit. I talk about this toolkit every so often, but it is jam-packed with so many different things to help you. If you are in a time of decision, if you need some time for reflection, if you feel like you are really just wanting to seek the Lord and walk through some different steps, have some accountability, have some affirmations that you can read over and over to help you as you're in this time of wanting to expand your faith and flourish in your business. Make sure to tag me on Instagram at steph.book with the word flourish, and I will definitely get you that Faith and Flourish Toolkit. It's absolutely free and it's jam-packed. I have so many things in it, and it's beautiful. So I also put a link in the show notes. So make sure that you grab that. It's definitely my gift to you, and I know that you will love it. So before we finish off, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about the dangers when we're sticking to that one perspective. Obviously in our example of the 6 men of Indostan, they spent so much time arguing over what their one perspective is because they were so set on what they only knew as true. And I've found so many times where I have been in the right. I thought I was in the right. And, I was so focused on what I thought was right that I wasn't listening to what other people were saying. And there's been times where, I've missed out on really stepping into something that could have been really good because I was so fixed on being right. And a lot of times I'll talk about the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. And the fixed mindset is someone that is needing to be right, that they know the right way and that's it. Where the growth mindset is open, they're curious, they're wanting to grow, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to broaden their perspective on what is around them, what they can see. And I think that if we approach this poem with more of that growth mindset and overall arching, we could say when we put all these things together, what a beautiful animal is what's there in front of us. But we might miss that if we're so tied into that one perspective. And it's difficult. And I know we all do that. I know myself, I get to the point where we get stuck in what we think is right and we're not always open. But I don't know about you, but I know I have dealt with people before where what they say is right, and there's no arguing, there's no changing with them, and it's kind of miserable. It's not always that easy to have that conversation or really open that discussion if they're so closed. And so I think it's important for me, as I am reminded when I'm reading this poem, that I want to make sure that my mind is open and curious and ready to grow, taking the time to listen to what other people have to say and bring in those perspectives. Doesn't mean that my decision is wrong. Like maybe what I'm thinking is actually a good and right path, or the good and right thing is true. What I'm thinking of is true. But to be able to know that, it's good to counteract the different things that are coming around me and taking that perspective, spend some time with the Lord and praying about it to know that I am moving toward the direction that He wants me to go. In Colossians 2:8, it says, "Be careful not to be deceived by human philosophy and traditions." There's humility in learning other people's traditions, hearing other people's opinions. It's good for us to hear those things. In Philippians 2:3 and 4, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself." This verse, it encourages us to have a spirit of humility instead of pride. Have that openness. Be willing to hear what others have to say before you are so set on what the decisions that you are making. And again, we see that all of the time on social media, right? And so it's not always fun. That is not a good place to have a debate, right? There's places and there's certain times where you have had those conversations with somebody. There's certain subjects that can become very, very argumentative, right? Where people are one way and you could spend hours refuting them. Those social media posts where that it's almost like a bait, right? That they are putting a thought out there because they just want to argue. I'm not talking about those kind of decisions or those situations, but more of the places where you are stepping into a conversation with someone that you love or you care about, or you're in that sense of time or a situation where you need to make a decision, and so you want to hear all the facts before you make a decision. We want to be open. We want to be willing to hear the different perspectives and then take some time out of our emotion, allow the emotion to rise up and fall again before we make those decisions, and then be humble in that and know in the time when, yes, you are right, and you can move forward with that with clarity as you've sought the Lord and you've taken time to take in that perspective. Or in humility, you have to say, hey, maybe I didn't have all the information and you were right. What you're saying is true. And so we get to have those moments of clarity as we're open and curious to grow. So we want to make sure that, again, and I've talked about this kind of throughout, but we want to make sure that we're seeking the Lord for wisdom. In James 1:5, it says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all. We want to go to him in prayer. We want to spend time in his word. We want to seek him and give him time to answer. And having that time of emotion to rise and fall is so important, because I know I can easily get triggered really quick, and then boom, I am like off and I'm not thinking clear. And then we can spiral into all these different emotions, and then we can even lose perspective of what the whole issue is about, because we've let our emotions take over and we haven't taken that time to stop and pray and breathe and allow the emotion to rise and fall before we have that continued discussion. So we want to make sure that we're listening and open and curious to grow and hear. Romans 12:16 says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Instead of arguing like those blind men, be open to listening, hear what they have to say. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but we want to hear the full picture of what is being said. How are we looking at it? What choices can we make going forward after we've taken in the full perspective? As we continue to walk through and make decisions, we want to make sure that we're understanding the different perspectives that are around us, and then seek the Lord. Continue to go to him and ask him for wisdom. Ask him for you to be open to hear the words that you need to hear, and learn the knowledge that you need to bring into your heart, into your mind, so that you can make that decision with clarity, without emotion, and one that is put together well with the information in front of you. So I would encourage you, as you are in this life that we live in, whether you're coming on an argument on social media, or you have a really big decision to make in your life, or if you find yourself at odds a lot with those people around you, take a moment and look and see and ask yourself, am I open to hearing what other people have to say, or am I closed-minded? So I encourage you to take a few minutes to look at your situations that you're walking through. Are you open to listening to other perspectives around you before you're making your decision? Are you taking the time to step in and listen, seek the Lord, allow that emotion to rise and fall, and then fully make your decision, or step and have that perspective that has been challenged and brought to the Lord, so that you can have a clear perspective before you are stuck in your ways. So friends, as you are continuing in your journey in your life, I encourage you to seek the Lord to give you that full perspective. Ask him to help you to be open and curious, ready to grow and hear the things that are around you before you're making your decisions, so that you are not arguing like those blind men who didn't have all of the information in front of them, but you have that clearer perspective, and in humility you can know and say, hey, I know I'm wrong, or you can step in and be able to be confident in what you're sharing, and knowing that you have given you've taken the whole picture in, that you've sought the Lord, that you've taken the time to understand that full perspective. So I would love for you to share with me, where in your life might you be seeing only part of the picture? What part of the elephant? Are you seeing only part of the elephant, or are you seeing the full picture? Have you sought the Lord for wisdom to know how to discern those situations? Spend some time in his word, seeking him, spend some time in prayer, in quiet meditation, talking to him, especially if it's something that's really difficult or a decision that's really hard to make, that you would be able to step in with a confidence that the Lord will guide you. So my friends, where in your life might you be seeing only part of the picture? Is there an area in your life where you need to broaden that perspective a little bit, where you need to spend some time with the Lord, seeking him and asking him to help you to be more open and curious and ready to grow, and making sure that you are listening to those around you and taking in that full perspective before you're making any decisions? Spend some time in prayer, and ask God to give you the right perspective on the situations that you're facing. I would love for you to share with me something that you want me to pray for, or a way that you are going to step in and look at something differently, if there's an area where you want some help with, and I would love to be able to have a conversation with you and we could talk through it, because I know sometimes it helps to seek the Lord, and sometimes it helps just to be able to have another listening ear that is on the outside that can listen in and love on you and hear the full picture, and then maybe even give you some guidance on maybe where you can open your perspective a little bit more. I know that helps me as well. So friends, I hope that you were encouraged by this episode and that there was something here that helped you, maybe where you're at in a decision, or if you are even walking through a relationship or something that is going through some hard times, that maybe this will give you a little bit different perspective and help you. If you found this encouraging, please pass this on to anyone that you think it would be helpful to. And as always, please make sure you like or subscribe so that you can always know when the next episode is available. My friends, you are worthy and capable of doing amazing things. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Take care. Thank you for joining me on Flourish. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and equipped to take your next step with confidence. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs this encouragement. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at steph.book and join our Facebook community of faith-driven women who are ready to flourish. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the ways we can connect and continue this journey of growth together. My friends, remember, you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Take care.